There we are again in the book of Judges, chapters 6 and 7. And this story is one that is pretty commonly known, but in most cases, a lot of important stuff gets skipped. So let me get right into it. All right. By now, in Israel, a familiar pattern has begun, and you've been seeing so far if you've been following the other stories of the judges. Israel's king was God. The Israelites themselves weren't doing a good job at following what God wanted them to do, and as a result, it was causing them problems. No big surprise there, but for them, they seem to think that, oh, we can do what we want to, and that's fine because no one's right here looking over our shoulders. Well, what this resulted in was the pattern of the Israelites doing what they wanted to do, God withholding his protection, somebody coming in and causing trouble to them, and then the people realizing that, wait, we need to turn back to God. And then they repent, they turn back to God, then God helps them. The trouble with going that route is that a lot of people get hurt in the meantime. And in this case, it's no different. What had happened was the Israelites in this area around the tribes of Manasseh and Ephraim and places like that, I think Asher was one of those, is that big rule for God is you don't worship anybody else. Reason being, there aren't any other gods that are real, and doing so is offensive to God. Well, these people decided they wanted to worship the gods that the people who had lived there before them had worshiped, not remembering that, wait a second, God drove out those people partly because of them worshiping these pretend gods. Anyhow, they did that. God didn't like it. He decided, okay, the Midianites live close by. I'm going to let them punish the Israelites for me. And the Midianites were motivated to do this because Moses had dealt with them before and fought against them. And the Midianites would have remembered this. Well, what was happening is the Midianites would send in raiding parties or their troops or whatever it might be, and where the Israelites had grown grain, the Midianites were coming in and they were destroying the grain. They were letting their animals graze on it and taking back bits of it that they wanted to take. So the Israelites were in pretty bad shape because it was hard for them to grow anything without the Midianites messing it up. So they had food shortages, and this went on for 7 years. And the people finally started to come to their senses and say, look, we need to be following God. And that's what they did. In one sense, they are praying to God, please help us, and God sends a prophet. You think, okay, this is great because whenever God sends a prophet, then things are going to change. Well, not always, because the prophet is there, as prophets are, to deliver a message from God. And the prophet's message from God is, okay, I brought you out of Egypt, rescued you from that tyranny, gave you this land, provided for you, but you worship these other gods. So you've made the mess yourselves, and you're going to have to live with it. Okay, not the message people want to hear because there's no promise that there's going to be any help. Okay, then the story shifts at this point, and we find that there's a fellow named Gideon who is threshing the wheat. And this is a dirty job because what they're doing is they have to throw the wheat up in the air, and then the parts you can't eat get blown off by the breeze that is generally present all of the time in this area. And the part you can eat comes back down, but it's dirty because you're throwing it in the air. Think of like throwing something that's dusty or dirty, and you get it all over you and it's messy. And he's doing this in a wine press, which is closed in. It's sort of like having a room around him, so it's even dirtier than usual. But he has to do this because if he doesn't, if he's out in the open, it's possible that the Midianites could see him and they come down to where he is and ruin his day. So he's doing this very dirty job, and someone shows up. Now, we're told in the Bible that's an angel, but I think Gideon doesn't know this. And that shows up as the story goes on. And the angel says to him, "Hey, you're a great warrior." And I think Gideon thinks this is the prophet who has shown up talking to him, because as they talk, they start talking about God, and Gideon saying, "Okay, where's God? He's delivered us in the past, but he's not with us now. What's going on?" Well, uh, this angel is explaining a few things to him. He says, "Well, I'm sending you." And for some reason, Gideon decides that, okay, this is from God, so I need to show hospitality to him. I need to provide a meal. And he says, "Wait right here." And the angel says, "Okay, I'll wait." He goes, he gets water, he gets uh, a goat and prepares it, meaning he kills it and butchers it, cooks it, and he makes a broth with it, and he bakes some bread, and he brings it all to the angel. And the angel says, "Oh, take the bread and put it on the rock." Okay, he does that. And the angel says, "Okay, take the meat, the goat meat, and put it on the rock." He does that. He says, "Pour out the broth." He pours out the broth. And so probably seems odd to Gideon, but okay, this he may think this is a prophet and this is a thing you do. Then the angel takes his staff, his long stick, and touches the rock. Flames come out of it and burn up the food, and the angel disappears. And then I mean, Gideon suddenly thinks, "Oh, I've seen God. I'm in big trouble." Well, God now talks to him, although Gideon can't see anything, and says, "Okay, you're not going to die. Got a job for you. You gather some troops and you go up against the Midianites and defeat them." And Gideon is scared, and I won't go into all of the details of this, but he does do what he's told. He gathers people around, and he ends up with 32,000 soldiers. Now, that's a pretty good number, except as he gets them together, he finds out, or we find out later on, that the Midianites have 135,000 soldiers. So it's like for every Israelite, you've got 4 Midianites. Those aren't good odds when you're going into a fight. But then God says something to Gideon. "Okay, you've got too many guys. You go talk to your troops and tell them if any of you are scared, you can leave." Okay, that's not really what you want to do at this time, but possibly scared troops running away, that might make others scared and they run away too. So, okay, you can do that. He speaks to his troops. 22,000 of them leave. Now he's down to 10,000 soldiers. So now it's like for every one soldier he's got, the Midianites have 13, really 13 and a half soldiers. So one guy fighting against 13, okay, it's looking pretty bad. Now, uh, God says, "You still have too many. I don't want the Israelites getting the idea that they won this battle without my help." You see, because God is going to win the battle. But everyone has to be able to look at it and say, "Yeah, we wouldn't have won it if it had not been for God helping us." So God says, "Take them down to the brook," because, of course, since the Israelite army, is camped out, they have to be close to a water source. And they are, just like the Midianites are in the next valley over. And he says, "Have them go drink water." Well, most of them just stick their faces right down in the water and drink. But about 300 of them just scoop up the water and they lap it up like a dog would. And God says, "Those are the ones. Send the other ones back." So now Gideon is down to 300 soldiers. And God says, "All right, we got our number here. Here are the ones who are going to fight." Okay. And it gets into evening, and God says, okay, Gideon, if you're scared, why don't you slip down to where the Midianites are and listen to them? So Gideon is scared. He goes down there with this other fellow, and they get close enough to some of the Midianites, and you think, wouldn't they see him? Well, it's nighttime, and they didn't have flashlights and things back then, and um, they didn't have uniforms in those days, so you could slip around. And they did. He gets down, and he hears this one Midianite talking to another and says, "Oh, I had this dream." And he tells his friend the dream. And the other one says, "Uh-oh, that's not good. That means Gideonite is about to defeat us." And they're a little bit scared. And Gideon now has the message. Okay, he's not so scared anymore. He goes back, divides his troops into 3 groups. So there's 100 in each group. Each one of them gets a trumpet and gets a jar with a burning torch inside. And so the burning torch, yes, that's what you'd use for light if you had to be out. And so he sends out the 3 groups so that they surround the Midianites. Of course, they're up on the hills around them, and the Midianites are down in the valley. And he said, okay, when you hear me blow my horn, you blow your horns, and then break the jars and hold up your torches and shout out, "A sword for the Lord in Gideon." Well, that's what they do. Get out there, and Gideon blows the horn, and the rest of them blow their horns. And then they break the jars and hold up the torches. And suddenly the Midianites, most of whom are asleep, but they're ones on guard duty, look up and they see these lights around them. They hear the horns. They think the Israelites are attacking. And these guys just waking up are wondering what's going on. And they pop up. Well, God throws confusion in on the Midianites, and they think the Israelites are down amongst them. And they start fighting each other and then trying to get away. And a lot of them get killed on their own. And finally, they break out and they start heading back to where they had come from, heading for the Jordan. By then it's daylight. Gideon starts sending out the word to the Israelite tribes around them. We need more people to come out. We've got them on the run. Let's get them. And they go after them and have a mighty victory over the Midianites, thanks to God. Well, that ends up leading to 40 years of peace in the land. But think, it all came down to a guy who was scared to do what God wanted him to do, but he did it anyway. And while Gideon had his problems, the thing we have to give him credit for is that even though he was scared, he did what God wanted him to do. And that's a thought to us. If we're scared to do something that's right, that's okay. But we want to go ahead and do what is right anyway and leave it up to God to be sure it turns out all right. Okay, with that, I'm going to let you go as I show you my tie. No surprise here, the flames that came out of the rock to burn up the meal that Gideon provided the angel, and the flames from the torches that they used in surrounding the Midianites. All right, with that, you have a good day and hope you're back real soon. Bye.